Hey guys, what is up? Soul 54 here, and welcome to Scary Stories with Soul. That's weird. But, first things first, we're gonna have Bernie telling the first scary story.
Hey.
Getting right into the video. So, we're gonna start off with Bernie telling the first scary story. Here you go, mate.
Heads up, here's the thing. The video you are currently watching with this is a video I recorded and is part of, if you want to watch it, it's on my channel, so go watch it. It's pretty funny. I get scared a couple of times, and I'll be honest, the times I do get scared.
Freaking promoting your channel and tell
Fine,
your freaking
fine.
story.
Okay, but hold on. It's pretty funny. Isn't it funny? How I get scared, isn't it funny how I get scared?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Stop confirming. Start the story.
Can't handle that being so low, bothers me. Okay, so. Okay. So. So sleep paralysis is whenever your mind's awake but your body isn't. I've had it happen to me before. So, here's the story. I lived in I've lived in two houses before. In my first one, when it was pretty good. It was pretty fun, but for a while we didn't have beds. So what me and my sisters did is that I shared I shared a couch with one of my sisters. But anyways, so that's very little space. And so we were sleeping and I woke up. But like I said, sleep paralysis, so it was just my mind. So I was just there, and my mind, whenever sometimes I'll just stay still and not think. I'll just, I'll just sit there and not move, and just think. And so I just I just laid there and I just let my mind roam free, which is supposed to be good for your mind and junk, but I just let it roam free, and that wasn't good. Because I went from like just random talking about random stuff to just thinking of demons, and then soon enough, of course, bada bang, bada boom, it appeared, and I just waited. At first I wasn't scared because my first thought was I just won't move because I wasn't trying to move at first. I would just lay there and wait till it got close, and smack it, and then I would wake up. But once it got close, I tried to swing. It did not work. I kept trying. I wasn't freaking out. I was staying calm because I thought it would know, it would like hear my heartbeat and know that I'm getting scared or something. I don't know. But staring at it, it was just looking at me. I couldn't do anything about it either. All I could do was stare at it. And after I tried looking away, but my mind's eye or whatever wouldn't let me. It wanted me to watch its every move. And so I did. And before long, it started to walk around. Not going after me anymore. I, I stopped trying to move. I just accepted. I had just accepted that I knew it was a dream. I knew I was going to wake up. But it started to just walk around. And that's whenever it really scared me. Because it started to walking towards one of my sisters. And so I started trying to move again, and it stops focusing on her and starts going after me. And so I just stare at it, trying to move so that it would stay focused only on me. And then after a certain point, nothing. Everything just went black. I knew I was awake, but everything was black. I couldn't see. I didn't know what was happening. All I knew is that it wasn't okay. That I wasn't okay. That something was happening. And with everything black, all I could think of was I'm either my mind decided I needed sleep, or my body decided to wake up, but my mind couldn't. But then I started thinking about it more, and then something just hit my head. The demon was right in front of me whenever this happened, which means it was the demon. It was either covering, but whatever it was doing, I couldn't see anything. So I tried to move my hand, and I could feel it move. I could feel that I was moving my body again. And so I put my hand over my eyes, and I felt my hand touch my eyeball, which means my eyes were open. And my first thought was, I'm blind. I just couldn't think of anything else. I was just blind. It went from staring at a demon to staring at complete and utter darkness, knowing, thinking that soon this was my future, that I was only going to see this for the rest of my life. So I thought maybe I could. There are surgeries, but that didn't come across my mind. My only thoughts were how my world had just come crashing down because of a dream. Because my mind overreacted, and I don't know what happened, but it whatever that demon was in my imagination, it caused my brain to black out, basically. Just like a part of my brain, pretty much. The part that allowed me to see. And so all I knew was that I needed to see, but I couldn't. So I I couldn't think of anything to do. So I just sat there. But then I put my hands to the sides, remembering that I should feel my sister or even a couch, but I felt nothing. Which meant this is most then I realized, is this thing temporary? Cuz I could feel nothing. And I immediately just thought I I immediately just thought maybe this is just temporary. This this is just temporary. So I relaxed, but it wasn't. It was just black for a long time. I could see nothing for a long time. And then I finally woke up. And I it was not okay. Your turn, Aiden.
Cool, time for my video, my story. By the way, guys, I'm good at the whole scary story thing. You can ask him. I'm good at the whole thing.
Yeah, it like starts out really good, and then after a certain point, it kind of
Gets dark.
Then it gets dark. Then you realize it's fake. Whenever he starts talking about creepy pastas and that stuff.
Okay, so we're gonna start with my story now.
That was wet.
Don't dip Sherlock into water.
Okay.
Okay.
What I missed. Aiden, this is what happened. I went to put it against my mouth, and it went too low, and it went and it just.
Okay, shut up.
How did he get to my armpit? How did he get to my armpit?
Okay, so we're gonna start telling the stories now. I'm gonna start telling my story.
Wait, but how did it get to my armpit, Aiden?
Magic, Bernie.
I'm confused.
Okay.
My shirt, Aiden.
Weirdo. Okay, so this I always loved my town I lived in, and the school wasn't far from my house. There was a couple of nice neighbors around my place, but there was always this one guy who gave me the creeps. Every time I'd walk by his house trying to get to the school, he would just stare at me. And this wasn't like just, oh, he didn't want me to get on his property. No, he only did this for me. None of the other students or anybody who lived in the neighborhood. Only me. And all the other people said I was the nicest person around. But one Halloween night, I was hanging out with my friend Bernie at my house, and I decided to go downstairs and get some waters because we were watching scary movies. So I went downstairs, grabbed some waters, and started walking upstairs, but then I realized my back door was open. I ignored it for a little bit, thinking, oh, my mother's probably home, or maybe my brother opened the door. So I ignored it, going back upstairs. Wasn't after 2 hours later that we started hearing noises downstairs. I started to freak out. Bernie just kept telling me it was nothing. It was probably just my parent or my brother. So I listened and ignored it. So we continued on watching scary movies, going through 50 or 40. It was late in the night. almost we can see the sun starting to rise, and we had school tomorrow. We After we felt really dumb staying up all night, we decided he would spend the night at my house, and for the time being, we would head to school in the morning together. So we went to bed, and when I woke up, I realized something. My brother or my mother was not home yet, and the back door was shut with the handle broken. Uh, I did not feel comfortable about this situation. I started to freak out a little bit, and then thought nothing of it, because my mom called me late at night when I was sleeping, saying she was going to be late, and she had my brother with him. So I thought nothing of it, and the handlebar thing, thought it was just a house, or some pranksters trying to freak me out. So I ignored it, being the dumb little teenager I was, and still am. I decided to just grab my stuff and head to school with Bernie. For some odd reason, Bernie was acting weird. Not acting like his normal self. He would checking the corners constantly, looking at all sides, kind of spooked about something. I couldn't tell what. We finally reached the man's house. Never caught his name, but we finally reached his house. I realized he wasn't home. He was always home. He was always outside when I was walking to school. Always. There was no in between. Or, oh, he was sick. So I got suspicious. And I told Bernie to continue on without me. We were pretty early, so I should be able to make it to school. And I went up and knocked on his door. No answer. So I continued. I realizing the door was unlocked, so I opened it. I went inside, and I realized that everything was gone. Something was off. Why would he just get up and move? No one bothered him. No one messed with him. I was quiet, and he was far enough away from all the house that have all the parties that he couldn't hear them. Maybe a couple of noises, but not enough to wake him up. So I decided to continue in his house, thinking, oh, it's just abandoned now, so I can explore it at will. So I was in there for like 2 seconds, and when I left, I heard the final school bell ring. Being freaked out, I was confused. It was only 2 seconds. I was in that house. How all of a sudden is the end school bell ringing? This makes no sense. So I started running to the school, and when I got there, everybody already left. Except Bernie, who was still waiting for me. He was confused as well, asking why the end school bell just ringed. I checked my phone, and it was still bright in the morning. Why is everybody leaving? I saw a couple kids get in their car and leave. I went up to ask them, and they were wondering where us two were that day at school. Something was off. So we went and checked with one of our friends, and they looked at us weird and laughed, saying, "Oh, you guys were in the class, weren't you?" Acting like we were there the whole time. We asked around, and everybody's either said, "You guys weren't here today," or "Why weren't you here today?" or "Oh, yeah, you guys were here." A lot of different answers we got, but something was always happened when we went to talk to them. They would always just stare at us as we walked away. Not like, "Oh, goodbye," just stare at us uncomfortably. So I just went home, and Bernie started heading to his house, and I went to my house, started playing on my PS4, and called my mom to ask her where she was. She said she would be back by now, but she wasn't. I called her, no answer. Started to get worried because of all the stuff that was happening. So I got up and started walking down to the house to where the man lived, and his car was there, but he was not. Final thing. Sorry about that. Apparently, we have to have little breaks. But where were we? Oh, yes. So I went inside his house and realized something was off, very off. I felt kind of wrong being inside his house, but I don't know why. His stuff was all packed up, and I realized that this wasn't how I left it, or how I left it, how I came in here. It was empty the last time I was here. So I continued on through his house, hearing barking. This man never had a dog, or at least never let it outside the house. So once again, I thought something was off. I started to walk down, and then I realized there was a door under the stairs. I made a little quip about it being, oh, it's Harry Potter, and started to go down there, just trying to make sure I wasn't freaking out too much. And I opened the door. I can't describe what I saw. There was bodies everywhere of my classmates, of my friends, of my parents, my brother, all hung up. I heard laughter behind me, so I didn't know where to hide, so I ran into the room, halfway gagging as I walked in. But I had to hide. I tried to find a weapon or something to fend off, but then I heard Bernie's voice calling to me. I thought I could trust him, so I got up with my weapon and started walking towards the door. And when I opened it, Bernie's body dropped. I didn't know what to think. There was no one behind him. Why would he just drop? I didn't know what to do, so I tried to call 911, realizing my phone was shattered. But I had to call 911 somehow. And gagging, I reached for Bernie's phone. And when I did, I lifted up his phone and it was covered in blood. So was my hand. I didn't know what was happening. He didn't look like he was bleeding, but there was blood on my hand. I just started to freak out. So I tried to leave him. I left, but he grabbed my leg, asking for help. He wasn't dead. So I did the only thing I could think of. There was no way he was going to survive anyway. So I did the only thing I did. I stabbed him with the weapon I found, killing him. I just thought to myself, oh, it was a mercy kill. Nothing wrong with that, right? Right. So I just continued on, trying to run for the back door. I heard barking again, but this time coming from upstairs. Thought this was weird. Why would a dog be upstairs? There was like 1,000 gates. Why would he be up there? But whatever. I opened the door and walked out to realize that the backyard was just covered in blood. I didn't know what was going on. I started to freak out. So I just started to run for the gate, and I grabbed it and opened it and started to run. I just ran out of the town, running to the police station, and no one was there. Tried to find more phones to maybe call somebody, but no one was there. A couple years passed, and I stayed in the town, trying to find something, because I, for some odd reason, felt like I shouldn't leave. I did bury every single body I found, every person in the town. They were all dead, even the man. I thought he was the killer for sure, but 2 weeks ago I found him, dead, in my backyard. But every time I would walk by any house, I would hear barking in the top. One day I heard it in my house, and I know for a fact my dog was with my father in completely another state. So I went upstairs checking, of course arming myself. Be careful. When I went up there, I I just saw something move at the corner of my eye. I reacted like any normal human would. And I just stared at this thing. Can't describe what it was, because to be honest, I can't completely remember what it was. But it just stared back at me. It had blood on its claws, and I just ran into the next room, hoping it wouldn't follow. I was freaking out. What was that thing? But why was it everywhere? And that thing I heard in every single house. I heard it bark. It started out cute, like a little chihuahua. Then it started to get deeper and deeper. I could hear something cracking, like bone. I heard somebody scream. So I tried to be helpful, and I opened the door and ran out. So there it was, standing there, with a human in its claws, if you could call it human. And it just stared at me again. And it crushed the human under its paws. But the human, after the monster walked off, the human just got up, walked over to the dog, and just said, "Good boy." That's all I can remember from then. I woke up in a mental hospital. Everybody's saying I killed all of the people in the town, blaming me for what I saw. I tried to explain to them what I saw, but after, they ignored me. That's why I'm writing in this journal. Hopefully somebody will find it and know. Hopefully somebody will know what happened. Maybe they seen the creatures too. But that's the end of the road for me. I can't take this anymore. I've heard the creature outside my door multiple times. There's no point. I managed to sneak this rope from one of the guards. I have it set up. And if you do manage to find my journal, please believe me. This story is 100% true. Okay, that's my story. Bernie?
Why did I have to die? At first, whenever you started to mention me, you said, I thought I could trust him. My first thought was, are you making me the bad guy? And I thought you were going to say that you walked out and there I was, holding a cleaver in a person's head.
Okay, yeah, Bernie, it's your turn to tell your story. By the way, guys, every 15 minutes we do have to, it will just cut out randomly in our stories, so sorry about that, guys.
Okay, so.
Oh, wait. Okay, we're back. I just thought every time I end a story, I'm gonna stop it and then start up again. So go.
Smart. Okay, so. In my old house, it was pretty simple. There was just a few houses, and we knew all the neighbors. We lived in a small town, not that large. Everybody knew everybody. It's that kind of town. And we lived in our neighbors close by. We were good friends with. As kids, we would go over and play with them, have fun, watch some scary movies, that kind of stuff. But the thing is, one night th- we went over and they weren't there. And that wasn't too unusual. Normally, because they didn't have much, they left at random times whenever they needed to. They couldn't stay in one place just because they had lots of jobs, so they normally didn't. But they never just like uprooted everything and just left. And they had an RV. It wasn't a trailer or anything like that, but it was mobile. So walking in and seeing everything gone, that's what was strange. And because we have a small, little town, you have to be extra careful because not only does that lower the chances of somebody being evil, it also lowers the chance of finding help if somebody is evil and does want to hurt you. So we had two dogs. We had three dogs back then. One was just a small black lab, but we had two Great Danes. So we felt pretty safe with them because they were dangerous. They were usually very nice, but if they didn't trust somebody, most they would just stay back and just stare them down. They didn't bark, they didn't growl. They were pretty nice, but whenever I heard them barking, I knew something was up. So I looked outside and I saw nothing. And my imagination took over. And my first thought was, is there like a ghost there? Or, and the moment I thought that, I looked down and I could see footprints in the dirt. And then they moved. And my first thought was to start praying. And so I started praying for me and my dogs. And once I opened my eyes, I could see the ghost. It was a girl. She didn't look mean, but I didn't want to take my chances. So I closed my eyes and continued praying. And this was back whenever I believed in God. I don't now, I'm not very religious now, but back then I thought I was hoping that God could help me. So I just kept praying. And whenever I opened my eyes, she was gone and the dogs were just standing by me, looking in every direction, always watching. And we didn't normally let them in the house because they're Great Danes, they're big. But I decided to let them in the house because I didn't want anything bad to happen. So I had them come in. And so they stayed by me the whole time. And I was by myself right then. My sisters were off doing whatever. And my mom and dad were off at work. And I was often home alone. So I just sat there and took care of my dogs. Normally I'd sit there and play games, but I decided to just sit there and not play any games. So I just stood there, and I did have a cross with me. And we had guns in the house, and I knew where they were at all times. But I usually never used them. They weren't loaded, but I knew they were there, and they did work. So I so I just sat there doing nothing much, and it was pretty relaxing until I heard calling from outside. And she was calling to my dog, to one of my dogs. She was calling to him as if he were hers. And at first he lifted his ears in happiness, thinking that it was somebody he knew. But after a little bit, he started to growl. And like I said, they never growled. And so we just sat there. So I just sat there and he just growled. And I did not like that at all. So I grabbed him and I took his collar and I put the cross on his collar. But she didn't stop calling his name. And I told him to go over there. And I told him to go over to her. And with the cross on his neck, I knew he'd be fine. And she pet him. And he was fine. But then she looked at me and said help. And then turned around and something red looked right at her. It looked sort of like her. But it was a man. It was bigger. Whatever it was, I assumed it was a he because it looked like a man. He was muscular and he was not wearing pants. So my first thought was, because I was scared, my mind wanted to help protect me, so it would do something to calm me down. And the first thing it did was made me think ghost rape. But then the more I thought about it, I realized whenever ghosts stay, they stay behind because they have unfinished business, which means, and I could see that he had stab wounds in him, but it looked like she had been choked. So I thought about it and I realized he is her unfinished business and she is his unfinished business. He, which means they knew each other in the past, and they're back whenever they were alive. And so I didn't know what to do. Looking at them, I didn't know what to do. But then I thought about it, and then I ran over to her, and I started to pray for her. I asked her for her name, but she couldn't say it. So I just prayed that little that any girls who were hurt when they were alive may pass on happily without being harmed. And so I just kept praying that, and that me and my dogs would be okay. I opened my eyes, and he was running at us. She tried to run, but tried I tried to grab her, but of course she was a ghost, so it didn't work. But she did notice I tried to stop her, so she stopped and waited. And I stood in front of her, and the moment he tried to grab me, my dog just bit his hand. Not just go through him. My dog was actually able to hurt him, but he was a ghost. So how? I didn't think about it much, and then I was thinking about it, and I realized the cross. And so I told him to stop and back up and guard her, and I took off the cross, and I punched him, and he fell back, and it worked. And then my second thought was, what about them? So I kept on hitting him and keeping him back. But every time he started to get close, I would take it off and put it so that he couldn't get to us. Put it in front of us, and they stayed behind me. So he was he was smart enough to know that that cross was keeping him back, but he wasn't weak or dumb either. So he picked up a rock, not face through it. He picked it up like he was part of our world, and threw it and knocked the cross out of my hand. And my first thought was, if he can do that, he would have to make himself physical for a moment. So I threw sand, and it did get in his eyes. And I grabbed the cross and put it back up. But he did the same thing, but instead of aiming for my hand, he aimed for my head. But he missed. I got lucky and he missed, and so my first instinct was to just tackle him, and so I did. And I just started beating him with my right hand while holding the cross in my left. And then I started thinking about it, and I kept on saying, "Oh, Holy Father, please protect me and my friends and my dogs from this demon." And I would say other things, but it wasn't much, and I can't remember them now. But I just kept punching and punching until I looked down, and he only his body was there and his head was gone. There wasn't blood, and it was obvious that it wasn't punched off. It was just gone. And then I put my other hand on his chest, and it disappeared. And so I just, again, my mind going to protect my sanity, joked about it, and I immediately thought, I can erase him. So I just put it on the rest of his body, getting rid of them. But I didn't want, and then I turned around, and she was fine, but her legs were gone, and she was slowly fading. For a moment I thought, oh God, we're too late. But then I realized she was smiling. She was passing on. But after a little bit, she didn't fully disappear. Her head was there. And then she looked right at me and said, "You did this to me." And then disappeared with her head turning red before it disappeared. And I knew that she will return no matter what I do. She will be back. That's the end of my story.
Okay, once again, we're gonna cut it out, stop it here, and then do it. Back in the old town I live, there was a lot of old things that was scattered around. Like, there was just a random Ferris wheel in this remote part of the town. There was a lot of random stuff and a lot of random areas in the town. Of course, you would think, oh, it's just how the town was designed. But these things just randomly appear. And I had no idea what was going on. No one did. They would just randomly appear, and sometimes houses were moved for the new things to appear. Thought nothing of it, and it wasn't really that big of a deal. Until I woke up in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothingness. I started to freak out, and I ran down my stairs and opened my door to realize I was in the middle of a desert. Confused out of my mind, I tried to call somebody. I managed to reach my friend, who was surprised and thought I moved because my house was gone and was replaced by a circus tent. I started to freak out, and unlike the irrational person, I started to run. I made sure I was able to see my house when I got up to where I was trying to get. Don't know where that was exactly, but I tried to see if I could see any civilization, and I did. I saw the houses, the restaurants, everything that's gone missing from all those times. I was ecstatic. Maybe this is some weird dream and this is something off. So I ran down to see if I could talk to anybody in person, and I went inside the diner that I always went to used to before it was replaced by a Ferris wheel. I went inside and there's no one in there, so I thought. I walked around a little bit and looked inside a booth to chill, and there was a dead child in the area. I kind of screamed a lot, kind of like a little girl. I ran into the kitchen area, almost gagging, saying it, and then I looked next to me and saw the chef staring at me. Looked like skin and bones. He was just staring at me. Nothing else. I saw him start doing I saw him start moving in weird ways, and I saw him start licking his lips and like he was about to eat. I realized what was about to happen, but not quick enough. He stabbed into my arm. I fell to the ground, and I felt a sharp stab going throughout my entire arm till I couldn't feel it anymore. I woke up, tied up in a chair, and I looked and I saw the chef eating my arm. I apparently passed out from shock, and I was bleeding a lot of blood. I decided to stay calm in the situation as best as you can get. I just stared at him as he tore apart my arm, and he looked back at me and came over and looked at me and said, "Gotta savor the meal," and dropped my arm off in the freezer. He said that it's better to have a warm meal, but it can do cold. And I could see he was about to kill me. Then he heard a noise outside and walked out there. I didn't see him for 3 days. Then he came back with another person, dead this time. He dropped them on the floor and tied them up. Don't know why though. They were already dead. I couldn't get a good glimpse at the person. Their face was ripped off, probably by him getting hungry. I looked at him, and then I heard the doorbell ring. Oh, I don't know what it's called, but when you open the door, a bell goes off. He was confused. I could tell. I was bleeding a little bit less. He patched me up, but I was still bleeding. I just stared at him, kinda dazed, kinda sleepy. He just shuffled to the front door, and I heard him say a couple swear words, and then he just shut up. a clown or something walked in and it said, I need you for my circus, in its joyful laugh. And it started to laugh. And then it reached its hand out to me, and he looked at my ropes and started laughing, and he cut them with his bare hands. Don't know how, I wasn't able to fully get a glimpse of him, but all I know is my ropes were untied all of a sudden, and they looked like they were cut. Not by a knife, by something else. I looked at him some more and just shrugged and got up with my arm that was still intact. He started laughing and said, "Don't be a downer," in this weird voice. I didn't really care at this point. He was gonna kill me, he would already do it, I thought. I didn't really care at that moment, so I just continued on my way. I started to walk towards my house, and then he laughed and said, "Why are you heading that way?" I simply had to check up on something. He laughed and said, "Go ahead." I went inside my house and started talking to myself, saying how creepy this clown was. And I grabbed the diary I'm writing in right now. I'm deciding to take it to his quote-unquote circus to see what he does. It's been 3 months since that incident, and I've never seen a circus. We've just been driving around my old town. I've just been in the back, and every once in a while, we'd go by a building, do something to it, and there would be a new circus thing there. I was very confused. Lately, these things started to disappear more often. He'd do it one every like month or so. Now he was doing one every day. I once again thought nothing of it. I fell asleep. I felt like forever. I woke up in the desert again, but I was surrounded by every single house in my town. I started looking around, and a man walked out of his house, stared at me and smiled, and reached his hand out. I didn't know what was happening, and my instinct was to take his hand. As soon as I did, I felt how cold it was. It didn't feel human. I pulled back, and with it, I pulled back the rotting flesh off his bone. I jumped back, freaking out, and it started walking towards me. Don't know what you'd call this thing. It just started walking towards me. My instant thought was to scream something, but when I did, all I felt was sharp pain in my throat. And I felt my ribs hurt, and it felt like there was a gash in my chest. I felt around and felt some stitches on my chest and throat. I wasn't able to talk or anything, so I just stared at this zombie, as you could call it, walking towards me. He reached out his other hand and started. When I didn't reach back, he got mad, started scratching and grabbing me by the leg and pulling me back. I was very confused and scared, so I started kicking, realizing my leg was gone. Or one of them, at least. I had one arm and one leg, and no ears. I wasn't able to hear anything, so I just assumed. And then he reached his hand out, and I woke up, and my vision was messed up. I was being torn apart. First my arm, my leg, now my ears, my eye. But I stopped bleeding after each time they took them. I just threw up a little bit in my mouth, and I fell over, passed out. 10 years went by, and I'm still missing all these limbs and parts of my body. Still in this middle of this fudging desert. Can't seem to find those zombie things again. Can't seem to find the freaking clown. I found the chef's body. Well, he's just bones now. If anybody does find this, come find me. I'm leaving this book at my house. I know this isn't such a scary story, but I don't care. I just want somebody to come and find me. I don't care if it's my body or anything. I'm trying to find civilization. A couple more buildings has appeared. Not from my town. Not from any town I've seen. Some skyscrapers and all that. But everybody inside of them has already been dead. So I'm leaving my diary or journal or whatever in my house. If you find it, please, I beg of you, come find me.
Where I used to live, we lived near mountains. Lots of wolves, lots of bears, lots of cows, lots of bobcats, that sort of stuff. I sort of got used to it. Near my grandma's house, there was what's it called? A mountain lion den. And it was pretty far, so we knew we were safe. And besides, if they showed up, she had multiple dogs that would kill it. 100%. Except for one of them. He was a little guy. His name was Snowball. He was the size of a snowball. And he was super fluffy. He was adorable. He was adorable. But, anyways. I just sort of, I like, in our backyard, I kind of just hung out and just did random stuff and had fun. But one night, while I was doing it, my dog Jasper brought another cow leg. At first I thought, gross. Then my second thought was, how did he get this? Because there's no way he killed a cow for it. And it still had blood on it, which means it was fresh. So at first I thought, did he find a cow that died from natural causes and it just ripped off its leg? And then I looked behind him, and there was another dog, bigger than him. Bigger than a lot of dogs. And this was before I had my Great Danes. So I wasn't used to, I didn't know how big they could really get, dogs. And I was really surprised whenever I saw this thing. It looked at Jasper and it did like that weird dog wink thing, and Jasper did it back. I was like, is this dog innuendo or? And I thought it was kind of funny and cute. And then the dog walked away. But then a car started coming by, and I thought he would move out of the way, the other dog. But it just rolled over. It just rolled over around the car like it was nothing. And the car didn't slow down or anything. I was guessing it was just some freaking butthole who didn't care what he hit, as long as he got to where he got. But then like our cousins that lived nearby, they drove by and they almost hit it too. And I know they would not hit an animal. But they didn't even react, so I thought about it and I realized, how come they can't see it? But then I thought about it more and I realized they were coming in here, so I didn't have time to think about that. But skip a few hours forward and they left. Jasper had Jasper shared the cow leg with Bob, which was rare, which I understood because Jasper was a good boy and Bob was a butthole. but Jasper still loved him like a brother. It was adorable. But anyways, after the leg was gone, we fed him. We fed him sometimes if it looked like he needed food, but normally he went out and just stole dog food from the neighbors, or drank, or just ate cows or goats. Really, he came home with something different every day. But anyways, that like wolf came, that like big dog came again, and I thought it was a wolf. And so I asked him, so I look at him and I say, "Come here, boy," because I didn't trust it, because I didn't realize it was the same wolf. Because this wolf was, it looked smaller, it looked more feminine. But after looking closely, I realized it was the same wolf, and I was very surprised. And I thought maybe it just hadn't eaten in a while, and I thought that was a little bad. And so I just let Jasper do whatever he wanted. He walked over to that dog, they licked each other, sniffed, and then walked off. Later that day, they came back, and that dog was bigger again. But something was different about Jasper. His fur had a bit of blood on it. And my first instinct, I called him over, and whenever the wolf started to come over, where I told it, my first instinct was just to back away, and it stopped, but Jasper kept coming, so I stopped. Jasper came over, and I checked if the blood was his, and it wasn't. And then I thought about it, and I looked over at the other wolf, and it also had some blood on it, so I thought, probably just enough. They probably went on another cow hunt or something. But something was. But then whenever the wolf was walking away, I don't know. At first it was walking away on all fours. Then it stood up on its hind legs and climbed over a fence. Not like hop up on its hind legs onto the fence with its front paws on the fence and then go over. It stood up on its hind legs, walked forward a bit, grabbed the fence, and then went over it. And turned around to see if I was watching. But I had looked down right away after I saw it stood up and start walking. And I was just petting Jasper, making it seem like I was just making sure he was okay, that kind of stuff. And I washed out his fur. I looked back up and the wolf had gone. Two things had gone through my mind. What if it knew that I was watching and it didn't want me to? So I got a little bit worried, that kind of stuff. But not super worried. Because Jasper loved me. Like, he loved me a lot. He's a very loyal dog. So he would protect me from her. And I know it was a her. Just because of how it looked. So I guess so I thought, wow, Jasper, my old man, has a girlfriend. Got it even in your old age, huh? It was adorable. And after a while, the wolf came back again. And he went with it again. But this time I trusted it. I don't know, it was just something about this wolf. It was smart, and it was nice, and it loved Jasper. After a while, it just stopped showing up, and I got worried. Not only for it, but for Jasper, because it was obvious he liked this wolf. So I got on my bike, and I told him to take me to it. He brought me to where it usually was, to a den, and it was just lying there with puppies.
I always hated my town for some reason. Like, an insane man apparently killed a lot of people in my town. There was a party and somebody was drunk or something. I don't know. Just a lot of things was happening in this town. I just didn't know what the hell to do. I heard a whole bunch of stories about this man who was dead, you could say. He apparently haunted this house down the street. And I got my friends together and we decided we're gonna go and take this ghost down. Yeah! Being all enthusiastic. So we got on our fake Ghostbuster stuff and some weapons we got from my mother and father. So we set out to go check out this house across the street. And I was a gentleman, so I knocked first, seeing if anybody actually lived there. I wasn't just gonna barge in, screaming and hollering. I knocked and no one answered. I looked, and the house looked pretty in good condition. Somebody fixed it up. So I knocked again. I No one answered, and there was no cars. And my friends just said, okay, we'll go in for a little bit, and if we hear anybody, we'll explain what we were doing and then leave. So that was our plan. If somebody did live here, we would say, oh, we're sorry. We thought there was a ghost here, and explain ourselves. And hopefully they would just let us go. So we started to explore the house, and it looked in pretty good condition. Everything was fine and dandy. So, like in any horror movie, we decided to split up because we were treating this like a horror movie. So we decided to walk around, just look at some stuff around the house, all split apart. In the living room where I was checking out, the TV just turned on a random news channel. Never seen this before. I watch a lot of TV and I know all the news channels. But this one was off. The guy who was talking started saying my name. He said my name once and then looked at me. I started to move around and he just kept his eyes on me. And then he started to list off names of dead children this year. My friends popped up on the list. After an hour of him listing off children in my town's name, and a couple children in another town over, he listed my name. I was confused. I heard one of my friends scream from upstairs, so I ran up to find out what was happening. He just laughed at me, saying, ha, I got you with that, and stared at me. He looked at me because I was frightened that something actually happened to him. And I told him about the teleprompter, and then he said, oh, I'm sorry, and blah, blah, blah. Never believed a word he said. Most of the time he would always lie. I don't know why I hung out with him. Maybe because he was kind of funny. Sometimes. But, so we continued. I made sure that anytime he would scream, I wasn't going to fall for it, because he did it 3 more times. And me and my friend decided we're not going to fall for your little tricks anymore. So we went back up to our areas to check on everything. And then I heard him scream again. I yelled back up, not going to fall for it, buddy. And no response. Thought this was odd. But still didn't think of it. Maybe he was pretending to be dead. So I just started work. Then I heard my other friend scream as well. And I, like the dumb idiot I was, said, ha! You both are working together to scare me? Yeah, right. And I started to mess with the TV, seeing if I could get that television to pop up again. And then I heard a man voice saying, why don't you come up the stairs? We're having a party up here, aren't we, kids? And I heard my friends' voices say yes, and a couple other kids I didn't know. I just stopped moving. My brain went into overdrive, thinking of all the ways that maybe somebody broke in, or something happened, or something actually happened. And I felt a hand on my shoulder. I ran out of the house and got to my house, grabbed my diary, and started writing in it. I don't know the man's name, but after I ran out, I saw a couple of photos. It was something like Jet Free or something. I couldn't tell. But I have one thing to say. Is that if you brat kids ever come back into my house, I'm gonna kill you all. Okay, guys, hope you guys have enjoyed this little scary story thing with my friend Bernie from TNT Hospital. I will be trying to put him in the description below, guys, so check him out. He does great videos on mobile phone and lately on my PS4. So, hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Besides that, guys, so 3, 4, out.
I'm bisexual.
Cool.